Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. This is going to be my Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. episode 13 video. So there were a lot of questions raised, a lot of secret organizations teased and new groups, so I'll try to explain those first. Careful for spoilers if you haven't seen the episode yet, so let's start with the Inhumans first. As they exist on the show, there's just like that small pocket group that the reader has been collecting and bringing back. We don't know who's running the group. We also have the real S.H.I.E.L.D. Like those plots really mirrored each other. So you have Skye's dad, whose fate is going to be decided by this mystery person that's running the Inhumans group, and you have Lance Hunter's fate that's going to be decided by the mystery person that's running the S.H.I.E.L.D. organization. Just starting with the Inhumans group. So here, a couple WTF possibilities. It could be Skye's mom, who secretly survived her operation. Reinhardt pretty much transplanted all of her internal organs into his body, probably replaced a lot of his blood with her blood too. But the interesting thing that they teased as part of the Skye plot is that you have enhanced humans, people who were modified by science, and then you have the Inhumans, which are kind of like mutants with the X gene. But the X gene and Inhumans are completely different things. This is actually a good opportunity to explain the difference between mutants, like X-Men characters, and Inhumans. So a lot of people feel like Marvel is using the Inhumans as stand-ins for the X-Men characters. Just because Fox has the rights to use the word mutant, Marvel can't use the word mutant. So Marvel is weaving the Inhumans into their cinematic universe, the TV shows and the movies, to explain mutant abilities. In the comics, the X gene is something that evolves separately from the Inhumans lineage. So the Inhumans descend from Kree experiments. As you can imagine though, the world's a big place. There's been a lot of interbreeding, so you get people who possess the X gene who are Inhumans. But not all people with the X gene can survive the Terrigen mists. Even if you're an Inhuman and you take in the mist, it can do something really terrible to you. It can severely disfigure you, and your power levels after the fact are always really variable. When someone with the X gene who already has powers takes in the Terrigen mists, usually what it does, like in the case of Quicksilver, is just take their powers to crazy uncontrollable levels. Like Quicksilver, instead of just being able to go super fast, can travel through time. So at the end of the episode, when Coulson was talking about the index to Simmons, they were talking about distinguishing capital M mutant people from just normally modified people. Going back to that post-credits Inhuman scene too, that's why the reader said, "You are not one of us," because Skye's dad used science to modify himself. He's right out of the comics. He uses like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type formula that gives him super strength. This whole episode was about making that distinction. Who's a mutant who has these innate abilities and who's been modified after the fact? It's like a 22 some odd episode season, so I get why they're taking their time developing this. If this were a 2-hour movie, they just like brush over it in a quick montage. Now moving on to the real S.H.I.E.L.D. So for those that haven't read the comics, there are several secret organizations inside S.H.I.E.L.D. at various points. Because a lot of the characters and the plot lines that they're borrowing tie in with Secret Warriors, Secret Invasion, Civil War, I think the real S.H.I.E.L.D., as Mac describes it, is just the Secret Warriors, Nick Fury's Secret Warriors. Some of the other big organizations that are born out of S.H.I.E.L.D. also include Hammer, Strike, which is like a cooperation with the British government that Lance Hunter was part of in the comics. There's Sword, which is more like a space-based version of S.H.I.E.L.D., and there's Secret Avengers. Of all those, the most likely ones are Secret Avengers and Secret Warriors. And what I think is going to happen is I think we'll see Secret Avengers around Captain America Civil War, like in the movies. It'll require several Avengers to be part of it. So because this is the TV show, I don't think they're doing Secret Avengers. Secret Warriors is like one step down from that. They're like B-level Secret Avengers kind of. But in the comics, those two storylines, they're like big comic book arcs. Secret Avengers, they're completely different. They're completely separate. Secret Warriors is like a comic book event that gets tied up with Hydra. Like Nick Fury finds out that S.H.I.E.L.D. has been controlled by Hydra for a long time, and in the wake of Secret Invasion, Dark Reign, creates this splinter group inside S.H.I.E.L.D. to do the work that S.H.I.E.L.D. would normally be doing. If you guys have Marvel Unlimited, you can totally read Secret Warriors. It's awesome. Daisy Johnson, the character that Skye is playing on the TV show, is a big part of that group. Nick Fury actually trains her to use those gauntlets. They kind of gave her the gauntlets during the episode. They just help her focus her abilities. The big group that Secret Warriors ends up fighting against is Leviathan and Hydra, Baron von Strucker. So I think just like based on all the different elements that we're working with, including what's going on in Avengers Age of Ultron, I think Secret Warriors is like what this Secret S.H.I.E.L.D. is, regardless of what they call it. I don't know if they'll actually call it Secret Warriors on the show. They might give it some other name. So moving into top 5 moments, starting with a funny one. Number 5, we meet May's husband. Or ex-husband. This is a lot of fun. Like her plot, like May's plot with her husband is kind of a mirror for the Fitzsimmons plot. If the cavalry can open up and have fun and be like this really awesome person with her ex-husband, someone you think she'd normally hate, then certainly Fitz and Simmons can reconcile. And laughing about May really does bring them together. So I was really happy with those scenes. Fitz and Simmons, one of the best teams on the show. You have to bring them back together somehow. You guys can let me know whether you agree, but in this like Fitz-Simmons battle that they've been having over Skye and her powers, I really feel like Simmons is coming down like the antagonist and Fitz feels like the sympathetic one. It's a really weird light to put Simmons in, but I'm totally happy with it. Like there has to be conflict in the group, so a line has to be drawn in the sand. Like someone has to be good cop, someone has to be bad cop. It seems like based on the events of this episode that their relationship was largely healed. Not 100%, especially given what Coulson asked Simmons to do at the end of the episode, keep secrets from Fitz and everyone else. Bobby was kind of like the narrator in the episode. We keep secrets for a living, we're spies, that's what we do. Moving on to number 4 though, Skye's dad starts rounding up people that have been modified. As he explained it, he's been using the index of people that have been modified to track people down, people that S.H.I.E.L.D. has wronged. He wants to create a group to fight them out in the open. The Inhumans, the people that are actually Inhumans, are like, whoa, nope, put the brakes on that. That ties in a little bit with their comic book culture. In the comics, the Inhumans are a very xenophobic, very insular, very private society. Attention is the last thing that they want. They do not want the eyeballs of the world on them. So the show is slowly teasing that out. By the time we get to the Inhumans movie, we'll have like several seasons of S.H.I.E.L.D. under the belt. So it'll make sense why we haven't met the Royals until the movie premieres. Because it's like, if we have all these super powerful people, how come they haven't manifested before now? Because they don't give a shit about the cares of man until it spills into their world, which it's kind of starting to. Just in terms of the actors, I think they really wanted these people to feel like B-team, so I don't expect to see them too much more. Drea De Matteo is a little bit more of a celebrity guest star, so she might come back on. I wasn't a huge fan of her character, though. You can make as many like Lady Deathstrike or Wolverine jokes as you want. And yes, the guy with the sonic ability did remind us a little bit of Black Bolt, but I think that's just a little winking at the audience. Black Bolt's ability is way more complex than just putting people to sleep with certain sonic frequencies. If he had screamed into that microphone, it would have been like an atom bomb going off in the city. It would have left like a giant crater. On to number 3, Mac captures Lance and takes him to the real S.H.I.E.L.D. This is a pretty big WTF, so let's follow the thread here. He captures Lance, doesn't tell Coulson about it. Lance and Mac are both outside of the base. Eventually, Coulson is going to be like, hey, where'd these guys go? What's going on? Bobby did tell him that Lance just took off, but Coulson isn't an idiot, so he probably has an idea that something's going on. I don't think that Bobby and Mac are evil. They're not working for an evil team. It's not like a group of people walking around slaughtering people. That's why I think the show is moving towards Secret Warriors Nick Fury territory, just because it would dovetail with the movies really nicely. And it would be a way to keep these Bobby Mac characters sympathetic while pitting them against the team without turning them into villains. And Adrian Palicki was upped to series regular, so Mockingbird here is going to be on the show in a big way for the rest of the season. Really what the show is trying to do is position like these 3 different groups. You have like this secret like new S.H.I.E.L.D., you have proper S.H.I.E.L.D. with Coulson, and then you have this Inhumans group, and they want all of them to feel relatively equal. Like none of them are evil organizations, but one is going to have to be the antagonist to the other 2 at any given time. So like the Inhumans really hate both of the S.H.I.E.L.D. groups. The secret S.H.I.E.L.D., like the new S.H.I.E.L.D. as Mac describes it, is probably going to be way more hardcore about tracking those people down. It'll be like a situation where the secret S.H.I.E.L.D. will go after the Inhumans, and Coulson will have to take his S.H.I.E.L.D. team to get in between them. So even though none of them are technically evil, they'll all be at each other's throats by the end of the season. Which is why I'm really waiting for like a new villain to surface. And the confusion will just provide a really nice opportunity for someone really evil to surface, like one of the heads of Hydra or somebody even crazier. I do think it's possible for Whitehall to come back and be like the really big bad of the season, even though he's technically out of commission as far as we know. I really do feel like that would be an awesome way to close the season down, where you have like Skye's mom, who actually isn't dead, surprise, surprise, and you have Whitehall, who surprise, surprise, isn't dead, and they just go at each other. Deacon Lockman is a great actress, so I was really happy whenever she came on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and really bummed when they killed her off super quick. I think her role on the show is more complex than we know right now. Moving on to number 2, Skye starts to figure out her powers. There were a couple minor changes from the comic books. So in the comics, Daisy Johnson is immune to her own abilities, but on the TV show, they explained it as her like redirecting her tremors inside herself, which was like shattering all her bones. The reason they did that is just to make us emotionally connect with Skye a little bit more. It's the TV show turning Skye's powers into a metaphor for what's going on inside her head. That's your dime store Marvel psychology lesson of the day. To explain the gauntlets, she has the gauntlets in the comics, and they help her focus her abilities. Nick Fury gave them to her. On the show, they're a little more practical, but what they'll probably do is they'll just evolve into the gauntlets of the comics. What I'm really interested to see is like how many episodes go by before Skye actually learns to focus her abilities. Like, is it going to be the end of the season, or are we going to see that in the next couple of episodes? I feel like they wouldn't hang that over our heads for too long. Like, it's too much fun watching someone use their powers and enjoying it. And finally, my number one WTF moment, Skye's dad is taken back to the Inhumans base. We haven't seen a lot from inside that place. We've only seen like the Reader in flashbacks. But based on the architecture, it seems like it's around the same place where Skye's mom was captured and died, like the place that they lived in China. I did think it was interesting that Skye's dad didn't totally recognize the Reader, but maybe Skye's mother never fully brought him onto the team, because if she was alive in the flashbacks and like, totally normal, totally big part of this society, maybe her association with him was just in the outside world. Doesn't it feel like just like a very cats in the cradle thing for them to do, to like bring Deacon Lockman back on the show, like, surprise, your mother isn't dead, she's alive, and like have this big happy moment for Skye at the end of the season? That just feels like a very TV thing to do, but you guys can let me know if you agree. Do you think that Skye's mother is secretly still alive on the show, or she will surface at some point? And do you think that Whitehall is also still alive? So I already explained most of the Easter eggs in the episode, like the real S.H.I.E.L.D. Secret Warriors type stuff. There was one really cool Easter egg that was kind of meta. The diner that they were eating in is the Pulp Fiction diner. I just thought that was kind of funny because it was a big Sam Jackson movie. Sam Jackson, Nick Fury, Pulp Fiction, Pulp Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fiction. If you guys did see any other Easter eggs that I didn't mention in the video, just write them below in the comments. But next week is a new episode. Be sure to subscribe to get my video. I'll probably post it Wednesday morning. That's usually when I've been posting my Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. videos. In case you guys haven't seen it, there was like some crazy WTF on The Flash last night. You can click here to catch up with that. And you can click here for all my other Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Inhumans videos. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys tonight. Let's all do the thing.